Increase. So this award lets me know that good morning. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Et toi? Comme ci, comme ça. Bienvenue. Young Wan Ying, bienvenidos, benvenuta, benvenita, namaste, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And what I do on this show is I take the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and I put it together into a story. What I've discovered over the years is that many of the same characteristics, the same qualities, the same traits that you find in gemstones, you find in people. So what I do is I use those stories as a template, as an inception point, as a bridge to help people, to empower people to discover the value of their own stories. Want to say this is a really important and difficult show for me. Those of you who have been watching my show for a while, thank you so much. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your support, your questions, your comments, because it really helps me to unpack some of the things, just the greatness and what gemology is and what this whole thing called jewelry and gemstones and precious metals, what it means not only to you, but to me. So thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to some new friends that I've discovered over the last couple of weeks. Thank you so much for your comments and welcome to Gem Hunter Stories. Thank you, Barbara. I entitled this show, Diamonds and the Power of Choice. And it took me a while to get how to put it all together because, as I've told you before, I've been studying this for 19 years. And so let me start actually from the beginning, the evolution of where I am today. Blood Diamond came out in December 8th, 2006. I had been studying gemology for about 2 years at that point. And when I started studying gemology, gemology was just exciting. I'm a scientist. I've told all of you guys I'm a nerd at heart. So the whole concept of molecular structures and where it came from and the history, the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones was just so exciting. And I was just going through. First, I started studying at the Gemological Institute of America, GIA. And it was just so exciting in so many ways. I went to conferences. I read all types of scientific publications, and I was ready to become a gemologist. And as I was going through it, I started in 2004. So around 2006, I started hearing all this rumbling about this movie coming out called Blood Diamonds. And the industry was going crazy. I mean, the industry was talking about blood diamonds. As I said, it came out in December 8th, 2006. I saw it on the first night because the industry was just freaking out about this movie called Blood Diamonds. I mean, literally, it was almost as if the end of days were coming. If this was a Marvel movie, this was Thanos. Thanos is here, or Game of Thrones. The winter is here. And everybody, this was going to be the end of the gemstone or jewelry industry as we knew it. And of course, I just got started. So what do you mean? I'm studying on this? You mean it's almost over? So I went to see the movie. And what I can say to you is that it was haunting. It was haunting for me because the way gemology is presented is a completely different way. The way it's presented in the books, the way it's presented to us as the general public is a completely different way. And it's not like those stories weren't there in the books that I have read, but it was subtle. It was subtle. You didn't really think about the way gemology is presented. It's presented with just the gemstone. That's all you see. This is a diamond, and the diamond has this refractive index, and this is what a diamond does, and these are the different ways, and this king and this queen has these diamonds, and you never really think about the people. So when I saw a blood diamond and I saw Dimon Hassoun, and I know I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly, but when this actor pulled up this pink diamond, and I knew because I was a budding gemologist how rare a pink diamond was. But what I wasn't prepared for was just to see the carnage. I remember watching this movie and was like, oh my God, when people see this movie, they're right. The diamond industry is going to just go. Nobody's going to buy diamonds. I remember the scene where the child was just, his arms was pulled forward, and the rebel soldier just said, you want long sleeves or short sleeves? And it took me a second to think about what he was saying before he cut off his hands. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is what's happening. This is what diamonds are. And what people don't understand is that it's not just blood diamonds. It's blood diamonds, it's blood rubies, it's blood emeralds, it's blood sapphires, it's blood tourmaline, it's blood amethyst. And we won't even talk about gold. If you talk about gold, when you really look at the history of gold, gold has killed more people, makes the Holocaust look like nothing. So what do I do with that? As an African American, what do I do with understanding that this gemstone that I'm studying, this gemstone that I'm spending hours and hours of time studying, this gemstone that I'm spending all this money on equipment, people who look like me are experiencing this? What do you do? So I made a decision that and then this is when I began to understand I began to understand the power of stories when I first started in gemology. So by 2006, I began to understand what I say on this show all the time is that nothing has value without a story. So here is the story, the movie, Blood Diamonds. And as I said, this is the story. So therefore, here's the value. Nothing has value without a story. So here is this story done beautifully well in Bloodstein. I mean, not the choreography, but the cinematography, the pictures, the death and destruction. I keep thinking about all those. If you didn't see the movie, there's a scene where you have all these women and children hiding in this room, and the rebel forces are there. And the two, Leonardo DiCaprio and Damon, was hiding, and the scene just moves on. So my question kept thinking, what happened to those people? What did the rebels do to those people? And this is when the whole concept of child warriors, child soldiers started coming up. So here's the story, here's the value. And nothing happened. I literally have an article around here somewhere. I've been trying to find it, where the industry, it happened. The movie came out in December, so Christmas time. This is a huge time in the jewelers industry. And they were talking about, oh my God, death and destruction is coming. And at the end of the year, it was at the end of the year or the January issue, when they look back at the things that happened in the year, the previous year, they laughed at it. They literally had an article saying the biggest mistake that we made this year was about blood diamond. Because what happened was more people bought diamonds that year than the year before. Nothing happened. So when I saw it, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to do something. So I created this in 2006 is when I first created the whole concept of the Gem Hunter. Gemological appraisals and storytelling services, art, science, history, magic. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to show people where gemstones came from, how that gemstone that you have on your hand, those gemstones that you have on your neck, in your ears, those gemstones came from people that look like me. Those gemstones came from people from Asian countries. Those gemstones came from people that came from India and, of course, Africa. I wanted to show that. I didn't want you, I had to say to myself, what do you want to do with this? And I said, I'm going to show people, not so much don't buy the gemstones, just know where they came from. So I created the Gem Hunter. And I started studying appraisal studies. I wanted to show people in my appraisals what is value. A couple years later, 3 years later, I wanted to help people discover the value of their story. And it wasn't even that deep yet. It was really more of just discovering the value of that gemstone and hopefully seeing the people that were at the beginning of the diamond pipeline, the supply chain, from where you are wearing that ring, and all the way at the end is some guy, some woman, some child that dug that diamond up. 3 years later, Avatar came out. And I was excited about everybody, like everybody else. I mean, James Cameron, the same guy who did Titanic. Oh my God, he's going to do Avatar. And I saw the trailers and I was so excited about it. In fact, I went to see Avatar when it first came out. Again, December 18th, another December 18th, 2009, 3 years later. And when I saw Avatar, I mean, I saw the blue people, I saw the technology, the guys, Jake, he was a Marine, so I'm a Marine. I thought it was so cool. You saw the as an aviator, you saw the gunships that they were having. I was like, wow. And it wasn't until, and even before that, even the guy, I forgot his actor's name, but he just said as a gunnery sergeant, well, you're not in Kansas anymore. This is Pandora. And I just got so excited about the movie until that scene when the plant manager was talking to Sigourney Weaver's character and literally holding up this stone. And he said, see this little rock right here? This little rock is everything we do here. This little rock is worth $20 million an ounce. And I remember sitting there saying, oh my God, they're talking about diamonds. They're talking about, literally, they are talking about the history of diamonds, the history of gold was right there. That scene where the bulldozers are not just the bulldozers, but the gunships, 10, 20 gunships with total state-of-the-art technology bombing the tree of life, the tree of this civilization. These people, the Navi, was so connected to that tree, they can plug into it. They were connected to the whole planet. And because of this rock called unobtainium, think about the name of that, unobtainium, that they didn't care. And I remember looking at the theater, looking at the people in the theater, like, just to see if there was any reactions, like, do you know what they're talking about? I figured that there was going to be an uproar, that someone would see the similarities, the analogy between what was happening in the year, what was the 25th century, and what had already happened 1,000 years earlier in the 15th, 14th, 13th century. There was no protest. Nothing happened. Unobtainium. Think about it. And just to let you know, there was a lot of elements at the end of the periodic table that begin with unup something, usually strange names. So actually there is I think it's element 121. There's 118 elements in the periodic table. So they're already planning that element 121 will be named some aspect of unobtainium. Again, nothing has value without a story. So I'm seeing this story. I'm looking at this story, which was just a beautiful, graphically illustrated story of the history of diamonds, the history of gemstones, the history of gold. And yet, it was a story. It had value, but nothing happened. It's Avatar, the first one, and the second one as well. The first one broke all records, $1 billion in sales worldwide. And there was no protest. Nobody said, hey, wait a minute. Isn't this what's happening today? Isn't this what's happening in our world right now? 25% of all the gold that's mined in the world, 25% is done by women and children. In an earlier episode, I told you that there's a mine in South America where it's underneath a glacier, and men and women pick for scraps. Gold, diamonds, alluvial diamonds. You have people who are dressed in nothing, and yet they're looking for diamonds. In fact, what bothered me was when you study gemology, you always read about the gemstones first. And when every once in a while, they will show a picture of it in a real life setting. And you see the gemstone, you see the white guy, you see, this is a true picture. The white guy, he was actually holding the gemstone, some of his friends, and then you had the mule, and then you had the guy who looked like me with a shovel. And I remember looking at that picture, and the guy had the name, who was either the owner of the mine or he was the manager of the mine. The diamond had the name, or at least a description of the diamond. His friends had names. Even the mule had a name. But the only person who didn't have a name was the person who actually dug the gemstone up. And nothing happened. What do I do with that? I felt a sense of betrayal, not just of my own people. I couldn't believe that. How do I sell something? How do I even do appraisals knowing that whatever value I put on that piece of paper, is that really the value of that gemstone? When I think about how many thousands of hours that people have worked and died, thousands of people have died, mudslides, not just slavery or indentured servitude, but just the hazards of being a miner. And nothing happened. And I kept that inside of me for years. For years, I never really knew what to do with gemology. I've been studying gemology, as I said, for 19 years. And it's only really been in the last 3 years or so that I began to understand what I'm supposed to do. This show is basically what I figured out to do with gemology. February 10th, actually a few days before, but February 10th, 2023, My mentor and the owner and operator and one of the greatest gemological appraisers really in the country, Robert James, told me, Barry, hey, you need to check out this movie on Showtime. It's a documentary called Nothing Lasts Forever. February 10th, just 2 weeks ago. Nothing Lasts Forever. And I didn't even have Showtime, but when Robert James, he's like the Michael Jordan of gemology. When Robert James of the International School of Gemology, wonderful school if you're interested in studying gemology, when he recommended, I was like, okay, I got to do it. I got to check out this program. And so I ordered Showtime just to see this movie. And when I saw the movie, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. They're telling the truth. They're literally telling what's happening in the gemstone industry. They have people like Michael Rappaport, right? Michael Rappaport, those of you who are not in the industry, in the diamond trade, Michael Rappaport, when you say his name, you hear, oh. I mean, I heard about him from day one. He has a report called the Rappaport or the Rap Report, where he gives the diamond prices. He was on that program. He was on that documentary. Just one of the great, and I can't, his name, pronunciation of his name skips me, but one of the truly great diamond cutters, Diamantaire, one of the great gemologists was on, he's a Russian guy. He was on this program. Even had this woman, Deja Rajan, who's in this program, who literally tells all types of stories about gemstones and precious metals and fine jewelry. She was on this program and they were telling the truth. They were like, oh my God, the things that it was like a revival for me. All the things that I had been feeling all these years, finally it's being told. And I'm like, oh my God, Robert, what are we going to do? This is going to destroy the industry. This is going to be just mess up everything. People, because what this show was about was real synthetic diamonds. Synthetic diamonds. And what people, let me stop for a second because a lot of people don't understand what synthetic diamonds are. So there's 3 categories in jewelry. You have real, which is natural diamonds, something that came out of the ground, and not just diamonds. Every gemstone, most gemstones are natural, obviously. Then you have on the other end, you have imitation. Imitation is when you take a material. Obviously, this is not a real 4,600 carat diamond. It's made out of some polyplastic, okay, and it simulates a ideal cut diamond. That's an imitation. What a synthetic diamond is. A synthetic diamond is something that has the exact same chemical composition of that gemstone, of that diamond. You cannot tell well, let me back up. You can tell the difference. You can't tell the difference. I can't tell the difference with all my training because in order to know the difference between a synthetic and a real, you need like $10,000, $90,000, $100,000 electron microscopes or absorption spectrometers to be able to figure out what that diamond is on a molecular level. So for all intents and purposes, synthetic diamonds and real diamonds are diamonds. They are diamonds. You can't tell the difference. So the documentary is talking about real versus synthetic. And I was like, oh God, this is going to change everything. And I thought about that for about 3 days. Because I realized, I thought about what happened with Blood Diamond. I thought about what happened with Avatar. See, these diamonds right here. This is the synthetic diamond, and this is a real diamond. I'm not even going to tell you which one is rich. This is one of these are synthetic, and one of these are real. You can't tell the difference, and I'll just help you out. The one on the left is real. The one on the right is synthetic. The same molecular structure, meaning that when I look at that diamond with my loupe, here's a loupe. When I look at that diamond, not only is it synthetic and has the same chemical composition, actually a synthetic diamond is better. It's kind of like, as Asia says in her book, or actually in the documentary, she said that now we can do in the lab what nature wasn't able to do, which I thought was pretty bold, but it's true. This is what a synthetic diamond looks like. And what's happening is the question is, what happens to the diamond dream? See, the whole concept of gemstones is really a fantasy. It's really about stories. But no other gemstone has a story greater than diamonds. None. Diamonds, people say, yes, diamonds have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, but it's only really been in the last 100 years that the whole majesty of diamonds have come about. Diamonds are the only gemstone that is valued from a transparent point of view. Okay, most gemstones, they're valued for your color, and so is diamonds. You're talking about D to Z, from colorless to slightly brownish when you get to the XYZ. Then you have what's called fancy colors. So blue, the yellows, JLo's yellow, canary yellow diamond. The Hope diamond is blue. These are the Dresden diamond is green. Yeah. So this is so what happens to the diamond dream? What happens to the way people perceive diamonds if now there's no difference between real and synthetic? And what I began to understand is that it's not just about the story. For every week I talk about stories, and then I show you how that story goes from a story to choice. And then once it goes, story to value. And then once it goes to value, what I began to understand, there's not enough just to understand the value. You have to make a choice. And I wanted to see how that resonated with other people. So I invited a good friend of mine, a Marine Corps buddy, Charlie Jones, who is going to come on. He watches the show all the time. You see some of his comments. So when we come back, I'm going to bring him on and see what his take is on it. And I'll see you on the other side. As you look at this beautiful amethyst, gold, diamond, and garnet ring that costs $26,500, always keep in mind that amethyst is a semi-precious gemstone. Discover the value. Your story. Hey, Charlie. How are you? Semper Fi, man.
Right, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Excellent. So let's get right into it. So when you saw Blood Diamond, what was your expectations?
That's a good question, because I saw Blood Diamond the first time because one of my buddies was like, "You got to see this movie. This is insane." And I never really thought about where gemstones came from before. It wasn't really a thought that I'd had in my life. It wasn't really part of my life. So I went into it just kind of openly, to see what the heck he was talking about. And I mean, I was just like, oh my God, like what is going on in the world, And I mean, I know it's a movie, so there's always going to be some artistic license or some additional drama, but like, then you start reading articles about, the RUF and things like that, the things that are going on in Africa and Sierra Leone. And you're like, wow, this really isn't that far off base. And I thought, like you were mentioning earlier, I thought that was it. Diamonds were done. As soon as people find out how these things came to be in their possession, that nobody's going to want. And like, I was, that thought passed through my head quickly. It was an emotional response. And then all of a sudden the world went on spinning and everything was the same and no difference. It was, if anything, it probably sent people to get diamonds that were non-conflict diamonds. Like they probably increased the sale of that specific category of diamonds, but I doubt that there was much of a change in the market other than that.
Yeah, there really wasn't. Those of you who don't know, once Blood Diamond came out, not just because of Blood Diamonds, but there was a thing called the Kimberley process, which basically was an agreement between some of the diamond producing countries and the diamond producer sellers, De Beers, and all the satellites that's involved with De Beers. They made an agreement that they would agree not to use diamonds that were conflicts, diamonds that came from unknown sources. But the same problem that exists then exists now, even with, and we'll get to synthetics, but who's really tracking that? Who's really tracking where did that comes from? It's not like bananas where, remember bananas will say made in Colombia or something like the made in Panama. Diamonds don't come like that. So once it leaves the cutter's hand and is polished, you don't know where it comes from. There's no geological or geographical imprint that's in each diamond. So talk to me about how did you feel? I'm an African American. You're a Caucasian white guy. Did you see? What did you see in the dynamics between the two characters in that movie, if anything?
I the way that I interpret the movie, at least, Leonardo DiCaprio's character wasn't really. He didn't really consider Solomon's character as like a person. He was kind of in the way, like, you have it, I have to get you out of here because I want that stone. It's about the stone. It's not about saving his life. It's not about his family. He uses the guy's family to get him to go with him, basically. And he has all his connections in the military and in South Africa or whatever it was, South African military. And over the course of the story, as they get to know each other on the running, basically trying to escape, all these people trying to get this unbelievably precious and rare stone that's going to be worth millions of dollars, he ends up figuring out that this is a human being, that he sort of bonds with him in a way, and I mean, it's heartwarming, I guess, in that way. But just to the start, like the attitude of this, of the two people at the start of it is really it's uncomfortable. It's like he doesn't see this person as as much of a person as he is, or other people that are connected in the way that he is. And it's a very sad reality of the world that we live in, and not everybody has the same values that we hear or anywhere else. Not everybody looks at the same thing and sees the same thing. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, yeah, it was good that towards the end of the movie, finally kind of came around and he ended up sacrificing himself. But, at the start, it was just, it's like, man, it's just such a letdown. You want to like that character a lot more at the start of the movie, and as soon as he starts talking and getting to know Solomon, you're like, man, this guy's a real jerk.
Did you feel? I know I saw Blood Diamond for the second time since I hadn't watched this since 2006. That's how disturbed I was with that movie, and because I knew I was going to do this show, I asked you, and I did it myself. Watch the movie again. So did you feel differently how did you feel about Blood Diamond years later, and just with everything going on, did you have a different take? Did it resonate with you differently the second time around?
It didn't really resonate much differently. I'm more informed now than I was. And actually, like you, I hadn't seen that movie in a long time. It is one of my favorite movies, but I haven't seen it a great number of times. I just think that the acting and the story is fantastic, and it's really well done. But it's I didn't have much of a different reaction. I was still appalled by like these kinds of things that happen in the world, and it's I guess the only thing I was wondering is, like, I wonder if anything's changed since the last time I saw this movie. It's the only thing I was thinking when I was watching. But the acting is still great. Leonardo DiCaprio is great. I can't remember what is the
Damon Hassan. I always mess up his name. So sorry.
He's a fantastic actor. Everything that guy does is great. I love him.
Let's move on to let's take that concept now. So we saw the movie 2006. Now we saw it again. Now, when you saw Avatar, the first Avatar, because the second one is really dealing with kind of the same issues, except we're talking about oceans and natural habitats, things like that. So the first Avatar, before you heard what I was saying about it, that connection, did you see any analogies to what's happening in what has happened in the world, either now or historically, when you saw Avatar, or was it just a movie for you?
And this was actually a situation where I kind of knew going into it that and this movie it was famous for a number of reasons. One of them was because the technology that they used to create the artificial world was way ahead of its time when they started, but because of that, it took a long time to create the movie. So it was a long time coming for a James Cameron project. But it was also notoriously political. Like there was so many political statements being made by this movie, and I I do appreciate those, but when they get in the way of a story, when you can only think about the messages that they're trying to send, and you can't really enjoy the story because of that, I start to lose my attention a little bit, because it's like, okay, I understand. Can I watch the movie? And then it's like another thing happens and another thing happens. So like for me, that was sort of my experience during Avatar. I did enjoy the movie. Um, it was way over the top when it came to how in your face those messages were, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was a very charged, and you could see it was a very easy comparison to make when it comes to like human rights and things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And how far we're willing to go to exploit this group for what they have and
Mhm.
take it from them, and how many times have we seen that in our history? Like
Mhm.
it's really kind of a tragic thing, honestly. um
So okay, so let's unpack that, because that's a feeling I had, and even more so because I know the whole process as a gemologist. So were you that movie sold over $1 billion, made over $1 billion? It's like one of the top three. I think James Cameron has, like, I don't know what's number one, but he's like two and three. The top five is his movie. Avatar, the first one, and now the second one is moving up. So with all that visceral things that you were feeling about that movie, political messages over the top, you're saying, were you surprised, or are you surprised that there's not more of a reaction, that more people didn't have the reaction that you had after watching that movie? I mean, they like, oh my God, Avatar was wonderful, the blue people and all this stuff. But were you surprised that there wasn't a deeper, more reflective reaction?
I hate it because it makes me sound like a total cynic, but not really.
Okay.
I think that there is a big separation when people watch a movie. There's like, that's the movie and I'm in reality, and they are two different things. And that's a very easy line for someone to draw when it comes to not wanting to think about how awful it is that these things are actually happening in the world. That was, like, I would say the biggest difference between Blood Diamond and Avatar in that respect, was that this was a movie that showed things that were currently happening in the world right then and there, whereas Avatar was showing a fictional world with blue people that you could make more of a separation from, mentally, and say, oh, that was just a story. It was a really good movie. It was great, and it was a great movie. Don't get me wrong. Like, everything was, I enjoyed it. It was just like there was more of a separation there. It's like it's sci-fi, so it's not real life. But Blood Diamond, you can't really escape the reality of that one.
And thank you for saying that. Um, so you watch my show all the time, and again, thank you. So how do we? Here we have two blockbuster movies. Diamond, which obviously was a story of something that was currently happening. Avatar is a story basically use the same mentality, the same oppression, the same political things that were happening 13th, 14th, 15th century. Now here's 1,000 years later, even though it's on a mythical planet, Pandora and all this other stuff, the same situation. So how do we tell, you watch me every week, talking about stories going to nothing has value without a story. So how do we tell that story? How do we create that message to get people to think differently? If you have stories that millions, I don't know how much James Cameron spent on Avatar, but as you said, the technology was state of the art. How do you get people to see the value of something if they can see a movie like that and still just come out of it as it's a movie and not think anything different, not thinking more deeply about the messages, some message, any message other than that's a movie next?
That's a great question, and I don't know how to really answer it. You know, one of the things I would say, one of the movies that I had the most like emotional like change after watching it was probably like American History X. That
Mm,
movie was unbelievably great in
mm,
so many ways,
mm,
but it really took all of the glamour and all of the spectacle of Hollywood out of it
mm,
completely and made it into a story that almost anyone can probably at least in some way relate to.
mm,
I think that's where you start bridging the gap, is where you start making it more and more relatable, you know, and that's why I
mm,
was saying, like, in the sci-fi world of Avatar, that is a sci-fi world. Those people are blue. I'm not blue.
mm,
I'm on Earth. They're on Pandora. These are all things that we can use to separate ourselves away from, you know, mentally making that connection totally. But
mm,
it's one of those things where if you want people's attention, you have to get it very tightly and you have to hold it. And I don't know if you can necessarily do that, because when you go to see a movie, when you go to watch something like that, you're going for entertainment. You're not going for information. Information is the byproduct. If it's a very
mm,
informative movie, then you're
mhm,
going to get something out of it. But that is not generally the reason why. And this is like the classic distinction and something that we're also talking about with a documentary. A documentary is entertainment, but it is informative entertainment, and you are watching it to be informed, but you're not watching it necessarily to get that entertainment as much as you are the information. The
Ooh,
the
okay.
yeah. So like a
Okay,
doc.
no, I'm just because that
Yeah.
leads. Thank you, because that leads right to the next movie, which actually was the catalyst for this show. I called you up. I'm like, I gotta have you on the show. Yeah, I gotta have. So here it. So we got Blood Diamond, not not a true documentary, but we know that actually the situation was going on in Sierra Leone. It was even worse than that. I mean, just thousands of people were killed, thousands,
Oh yeah.
millions of people were displaced. Sierra Leone as a country is still going through those changes. So you got Blood Diamond, then you have Avatar, all right, which was a very beautiful, picturesque movie story about using it. So now you have the documentary Nothing Lasts Forever, which thank you for watching that movie. So now you have a situation where the story of gemstones, the story of diamonds, diamonds are forever. And if you watch the movie, you had Michael Rappaport sitting there saying, which I thought was just unbelievable, when he said that women associate their relationship to that diamond. Like he said it like it was coming like directly, like Jesus said that. Well, Jesus said that a woman's relationship, a woman who you are as a person, is manifest in the diamond that you're wearing. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not even a woman. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that was
or
bad.
from a man's point of view, when you buy that woman a diamond, what you're saying to her, in fact, it's the only way for you to really demonstrate your love is to spend 2 months' salary. They even told you, you're not
Hmm.
really loving your woman unless you spend 2 months' salary on
Yep.
that diamond. So, going to what you're saying, if people you're saying that there's a difference, there's a dichotomy. You go to entertainment, you just go to get entertained. Okay, cool. Then you're saying with a documentary, you're going there to be informed. Okay, so now with Blood Diamond, with Avatar, first and second, because you might as well include the second one in there too. It's just a different thing. But now here's a documentary saying that, that thing that we've been telling you for the last 100 years that's really rare? It's not. That thing that we've been telling you that it's a symbol of your romance? It's not. In fact, that's what Asia says in that book, that Maximilian I gave the first engagement ring, which is what De Beers used to sell, but he never gave it to Mary. He gave it to Mary. Mary received it, but it was a land grab. It was a land deal. Hey,
to her father.
Hey, Charles. In fact, his name was Charles. Mary of Burgundy's name, her father's name. He was Charles of Burgundy. He had a whole region in the northern part of France. So Bruges, where diamonds first started getting cut, this was new technology. So what he did was, if I want to get the girl, if I want to get the land, let me give the father the new technology, like a new flat screen television. Here you go, Dad. And the dad says, I like him. Why don't you marry him? He died before it happened. So now that you have a documentary that's informational, do you think that things are going to change? The fears that the things that Blood Diamond was trying to bring out and Avatar was bringing out in a different way. Now we have a documentary from people in the industry saying that you can't tell the difference between real and synthetic diamonds, and synthetic diamonds are already in the market. There are people right now, and I hate to say this to you, but there are people right now who have diamond rings, diamond jewelry, who are actually wearing synthetic diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think, using your comparison, entertainment, informational, now since that information out there, do you think there's going to be a change?
I do think there will be some kind of a change, but I think that there will be a change for a very different reason than from the other films. And simply that is that this movie, this documentary is threatening the amount of money that people are going to make. It's not threatening the atrocities being found out. It's not threatening the, oh my God, if they find out what we're doing behind the curtain, then they're not going to want this product anymore. We have to hide this. It's not about that anymore. It's about, are you selling me something that is worthless or not? Mm-hmm. And if you can't make a distinction there, then the entire industry is going to start dropping when it comes to the rarity. I mean, you saw in the film, there was bags from floor to ceiling, bags in 25 different rooms.
Excuse me, 28 rooms. 28 rooms.
I shouldn't be so sarcastic, but like 28 rooms. These bags are full of diamonds. Like De Beers, they are called the Diamond Cartel for a reason, because they invented engagement rings. They invented the idea of giving someone an expensive ring. That idea didn't exist more than 100 years ago at all. The only time you got a ring was when you got married, and it was a little piece of metal around your finger. That was it. And the reason why you had that is because it symbolized the complete circle of a relationship. It had nothing to do with diamonds lasting forever. So they turned a stone that was essentially as common and as valuable as quartz, got all of it, and then said, this is the rarest thing in the world. And if your guy doesn't get you, or if you don't get a big diamond, he doesn't care about you. And that was the real thing that was upsetting me, like during watching that, was this idea when Mr. Rappaport was talking about this projection. Like, so what you're really saying when you say that, when someone projects their value of themselves on that stone, what you're saying is that you're buying that person with a diamond, essentially. I spent enough money to buy you. I cannot imagine a more insulting thing to do. Like, you can't own somebody. So to sit here and tell me that I need to spend a certain amount of money on a stone, because if I don't, they're not going to be with me. I'm not trying to buy them. It's about a relationship. It's a gesture of of love and inequality. It's not about I want to make sure that I buy an expensive enough stone to keep you around. What the hell is that?
So thank you. I mean, I felt the same way. I felt insulted in both ways. I felt insulted as a man. You're saying to your point that I need to, because I love someone, that I need to. The ultimate symbol of that love is not me going to work, paying the bills, taking care of them, and that. None of that. It's that ring. As if once you get that ring, you're good. You know, you're just good. And we know that's not true. How many one of the earliest shows I did on this show was talking about, you know, the J Lo's, the Mariah Carey's, the Elizabeth Taylor. You know, Richard Burton bought Elizabeth Taylor. I think it was like a 33 carat diamond, which was like one of the most expensive diamonds given to a woman at that time, and yet she had what, 6 or 7 marriages. She married Elizabeth Taylor twice. So my point is, what is so in concept of what this story, what this show is about? Stories move into value. That's the only way you get the value. So now, once you understand the value of something, what's the choice you make? What's the choice? So how do you, now that you have those 3 different pictures, Blood Diamond, Avatar, and now Nothing Lasts Forever, how are you feeling about the gemstone industry? How are you feeling about diamonds?
I don't think my opinion on the diamonds or the stones themselves has changed any. I've always been very fascinated by them. You know, it's there's a reason why almost every society in history has had legends and mythologies built around these specific types of things, because they exude some kind of almost magical aura, right? Like opals. Black opals are my favorite stone. I mean, it's like looking into the cosmos when you look into a black opal. There's nothing like it that you could ever reproduce. You know, that's magical. It's mystical to me. It's very interesting. It's cool. You know, the fact that on your cell phone that your camera lenses are all sapphires. They're not glass because they're hard. You know, I mean, they're not in of themselves any different to me than they were. I think that my opinion on where prices come from, my opinion on how these things are used to gauge the value of a human being is the part that I find offensive. That's that I find that I would like to see a change in. It doesn't matter how big the stone you have on your hand is. If you have no love in your life, it doesn't matter. You know, that ring isn't going to save your marriage. It's going to, you're going to have to give it back, honestly. It doesn't work out, you know? So like, I don't know. I think that I try to separate those things. I try to separate the people that make those decisions from the items themselves, because to allow that to affect my opinion on the beauty and the majesty of gemstones is kind of taking away from the point of being involved, you know, in taking joy in those. I mean, it would take the joy out of it for me.
All right,
So
all right.
I guess, yeah.
And I'm gonna have to stop you. Just we could talk about this all day long. Time, of course, is so. I just want to to the audience, so my worldwide audience, let's give Charlie a hand. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Charlie. And I'll bring you back about different. Charlie's an expert on different antiques and things, and so we're gonna bring him on. We're gonna talk about swords next time. So thank you so much, Charlie. I really appreciate you being here today. And what I want to, and I'm gonna do an afterthoughts episode about this, so watch out for that. But Charlie brought up some interesting points, and what I want you to get out of today's show, it's about going from a story. You hear a story, and to me, it reaches wider. So it's kind of like climate change. You know, do we believe in climate change? Do we believe? There's so many issues that once you hear the story about what something or someone is going through, and you conceptualize it as some kind of value, then does that value, then the next step is making that choice. That's what I realized. I realized that for me, working in a jewelry store or selling gemstones or even with appraisals to some point, how am I living my truth? How am I living to what I want to do? And that's the reason why I do this, because I want to use gemstones in a different way, in a more empowering way. So thank you for today. Thank you for watching me deal with a really serious issue. I look forward to, I don't know what's going to happen next week, but you know that you and I will go on a journey. So again, my name is Barry Mixon. I am a gemological storyteller. And what I want you to think about today, your homework, is not only just recognizing and discovering the value of your story, but now let's take it to the next step. What choices have you made as a result of discovering that value? And now what are you doing to either increase or decrease what that value is? What is your choice when you consider and discover your own value? So until next week, au revoir, à tutela, voilà. Nothing has value without a story. That is the essence of Professor Barry's Science Emporium. Ladies and gentlemen, science is all around us. It is in everything that your child does. It is in everything that your child wants to be. So what I do is take their stories and incorporate it into the stories of the lessons that I want to teach in science and history. And I guarantee that at the end of the lesson, your child will either love science or have a much greater appreciation for science and history, because they will come to realize, as thousands of children have come to realize all over the world, is that at Professor Barry's Science Emporium, everything is science. I hope I have the opportunity to work with your child. Professor Barry's Science Emporium, where everything is science.